Every evening as the sun dipped behind the rooftops, a little green parrot sat alone on a cold balcony, staring at the gate, waiting for someone who never came. Days turned into months, months into years, but he never gave up. This is the heartbreaking true story of a parrot who waited every single day for the boy who promised to come back. Whistles of Love. In a quiet neighborhood nestled on the edge of a bustling city lived a boy named Oliver. He was the kind of child who rarely spoke but always listened. His world was small, just him and his mother, who worked 2 jobs and came home exhausted, often too tired to notice the silent ache in her son's eyes. Oliver didn't complain, not once, but silence has weight, and he carried the heaviness of loneliness. On his 7th birthday, his mother surprised him with a small green parrot in a cage. "Happy birthday, darling," she whispered, placing a gentle kiss on his forehead, before hurrying off to work. The bird squawked and fluttered in its new cage, eyes darting curiously. Oliver stared, his eyes wide. It was the first time in a long while that something in his heart stirred. The parrot was unlike any other pet. He was clever, talkative, and mischievous. Oliver named him Charlie, a name that seemed to fit the bird's playful spirit. It took only a week for the boy and the bird to become inseparable. Oliver would sit for hours on the little balcony outside their 2nd-floor apartment, whispering stories to Charlie. The parrot would tilt his head, repeat names, and mimic Oliver's laughter. "Oliver, Charlie loves you," the bird would chirp joyfully, and every time he did, Oliver's world felt a little less empty. Days turned into months, and soon the 2 had created a secret language. When Oliver returned from school, Charlie would greet him with loud whistles, followed by a joyful, "You're back, Oliver!" He would dance from side to side in his cage until the boy opened it and let him perch on his shoulder. Together they'd watch the world from the balcony, cars rushing by, children playing downstairs, the sky changing colors as evening came. Oliver would talk about his dreams, his fears, his longing for a father he barely remembered. And Charlie, he listened. Always. No one saw the boy smile the way he did when Charlie was around. It was a smile that came from deep within, the kind only true companionship can create. The neighbors started noticing too. "That parrot talks more than the way a boy does," one old lady chuckled. "But look at how happy he is," said another. "That bird has saved that child's heart." And they were right. In Charlie, Oliver had found something rare, unconditional love. The kind that doesn't demand explanations, the kind that speaks in whistles and wing flutters, the kind that makes a boy believe he's not alone. One evening, as the sun set in shades of orange and gold, Oliver cupped Charlie in his hands and whispered, "You're my best friend, you know?" Charlie cocked his head, nudged his beak against the boy's cheek, and softly repeated, "Best friend, Oliver." That night, under the humming ceiling fan and dim hallway light, Oliver slept with the soft sounds of feathers rustling beside his bed. Charlie was there, watching over him like a guardian made of emerald and trust. Neither of them knew it would be the last peaceful night they'd spend together for a very long time, a storm without warning. It began like any other day. The sun rose lazily, spilling warm light across the dusty floorboards of their small apartment. Oliver's sleepy eyes fluttered open, and before he could even stretch, he heard the familiar chirping of Charlie from the balcony. "Good morning, Oliver," the parrot called in his usual cheerful voice, fluttering his wings in excitement. Oliver smiled, his heart filling with a sense of comfort that only Charlie could provide. He stretched and rubbed his eyes before heading to the window, unlocking it with a creak and letting the morning air flow through. Charlie flapped his wings in delight, landing on Oliver's shoulder as the boy leaned out to feel the breeze. But that morning, something was different. His mother, looking pale and weary, walked into the room holding a large suitcase. There was something in her eyes, something heavy that Oliver couldn't quite place. "We need to go to your aunt's house today, Oliver," she said, her voice strained. "Just for a few days. It's important." Oliver frowned. "But what about Charlie? He won't be okay here by himself." Her eyes softened. but only for a moment. "The landlord will take care of him. Don't worry, we'll be back soon." But the unease in her voice echoed in Oliver's chest. "Promise me we'll come back for him, Mama." She hesitated. "I promise." Oliver hugged Charlie tightly, feeling the warmth of the parrot's tiny body against his chest. "I'll be back soon, okay, buddy?" he whispered, pressing his face into the soft feathers. "Oliver, come back!" Charlie squawked, his voice filled with a sorrow Oliver hadn't heard before. The bird tilted his head, as though trying to understand what was happening. "Don't worry, I'll come back for you," Oliver repeated softly. But as the door clicked shut behind him and they left the apartment, the words felt like a distant echo. The journey to his aunt's house was long and tiring. The city streets seemed unfamiliar, as though they were no longer the ones Oliver had walked just days before. His mother's tired eyes and the quiet tension in the air only added to the feeling that something was slipping away, something he couldn't hold on to. Days turned into weeks. Oliver's mother's illness grew worse, and before long, they found themselves in a hospital in a distant city. The thought of Charlie sitting in that empty apartment gnawed at Oliver's heart every night. He called his neighbors, asking them to check on the parrot, but each time they told him Charlie was fine. "He's still waiting for you, Oliver," they'd say. But as the weeks turned into months, the calls grew less frequent. Oliver's heart ached with each passing day. He wanted to go home. He wanted to return to Charlie, to the only friend who had never let him down. But things didn't go as planned. Months passed before his mother was stable enough to travel back, and when they finally arrived at their apartment, everything was different. The once familiar balcony, where they had spent so many evenings together, was now silent. Oliver's heart skipped a beat as he ran up the stairs, taking two at a time. He threw open the door and rushed out onto the balcony. The cage was still there, but there was no sign of Charlie. His perch stood empty, the food bowls untouched, and the fading sunlight cast long shadows on the cracked floor. A cold shiver ran down his spine. "Mama!" he cried, his voice shaking. "Where's Charlie?" She followed him to the balcony and looked around. "I don't know, Oliver. Maybe the landlord took him." But Oliver knew. He knew that Charlie wouldn't just leave. Not after all this time. The bird had waited day after day, through all the seasons, through rain, wind, and sun. He had waited for the boy who promised to come back. And now he was gone. The empty balcony. Oliver spent the next few days searching every corner of the neighborhood. He knocked on doors, asked the neighbors, and even visited the landlord, but no one knew where Charlie had gone. The small apartment, once filled with the sound of the parrot's joyful calls and fluttering wings, now felt like an empty shell. Oliver's heart, once full of hope, sank deeper with every unanswered question. Charlie had waited for so long, but now, in the silence that surrounded him, Oliver couldn't shake the feeling that he had failed the one creature who had never let him down. One afternoon, unable to sit still any longer, Oliver climbed up to the roof of their building. From Sharby's there, he could see the entire neighborhood, the busy streets, the parks, the crowded markets, and, just beyond them, the vast city stretching out to the horizon. He looked at the places Charlie had never seen, the open skies, the endless roads, the busy world, and his heart broke even more. "Why didn't I come back sooner?" he whispered to himself. "I promised him I would." Tears blurred his vision as he lowered his gaze to the balcony below. The cage was gone now, but the empty perch was still there, as though waiting for Charlie's return. But the bird would never return. Oliver's breath caught in his throat as the weight of that realization hit him. For days, Oliver continued to wait, hoping against hope that Charlie would somehow come back. He would sit on the balcony and whistle softly, just like he used to, as though calling the bird back from wherever he had gone. But there was no answer, no flutter of wings, no joyful Oliver to greet him. One night, while staring at the stars, a faint sound reached his ears, a soft whistle carried by the wind. It was a sound so familiar that for a moment Oliver froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "Charlie?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The whistle sounded again, this time closer. Oliver's pulse quickened as he rushed out onto the balcony. his heart racing. There, perched on the edge of the roof, was a single green parrot. "Charlie," Oliver cried, his voice breaking. "You came back." The bird tilted its head, its eyes meeting Oliver's with a knowing gaze. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. In that instant, it was as if nothing had changed. The world around them melted away, and all that mattered was the bond they shared. Oliver held out his hand, and the parrot flew down, landing on his shoulder with the same familiar weight that had always felt so right. "I never gave up on you," Oliver whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I promised I'd come back." Charlie's wings fluttered gently against Oliver's cheek, and the boy smiled through his tears. The parrot nuzzled him affectionately as if to say, "I never gave up on you either." A promise kept. The sun was setting as Oliver sat on the balcony, Charlie perched comfortably on his shoulder. The evening air was cool, and the familiar scent of jasmine from the tree below lingered in the breeze. Oliver felt a strange sense of peace, as though everything was exactly as it should be. The parrot, though no longer the vibrant creature he once was, seemed content, his feathers ruffled by the gentle wind. The scars of time were visible in both of them, but they were together again, and that was all that mattered. Charlie whistled, softly, a sound that had become both a greeting and a reminder of their bond over the years. It was a sound that, in its simplicity, spoke volumes. Every whistle, every call, every quiet chirp carried the weight of all those years of waiting. And now, at last, it felt like the wait was over. Oliver smiled, his heart full. He leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes, savoring the moment. It had been such a long road to get here, a road full of mistakes, lost time, and heartache. But here they were, together again. "Charlie," Oliver whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "I'm sorry. I should have come back sooner. I never meant to leave you behind." The parrot nuzzled his cheek, a soft whistling sound escaping him. It was almost as if Charlie understood. Oliver could feel the warmth of the bird's tiny body against his skin. And in that simple, shared moment, all the unspoken words between them vanished. There was no need for apologies or explanations. They had both endured so much, and yet, here they were. The days that followed felt like a beautiful dream, one where Oliver was finally home, where his mother's health was improving, and where he and Charlie could simply exist in the quiet comfort of each other's presence. Oliver made a habit of sitting with Charlie every evening, just as they had all those years ago. They would watch the sky change color, the stars appear one by one, and listen to the world around them settling into the calm of the night. One evening, as the moon rose high above, Oliver sat with Charlie on the balcony, his fingers gently stroking the parrot's feathers. "You waited for me," he said softly. "All those years you waited." Charlie blinked up at him, a soft whistle escaping his beak. Oliver could feel his heart swell with gratitude and love. There were no words that could truly express the depth of what Charlie had done for him, how the bird had been his constant companion, his silent supporter, even in the darkest moments of his life. Charlie, too, had waited, and now, in the peaceful silence that filled the night, it felt as though they had both been healed. The bond between them was stronger than ever. Nothing else mattered in that moment. Not the years that had passed, not the distance that had separated them. They were together again, and that was enough. Oliver smiled down at the bird, his heart light. "I'll never leave you again," he whispered, more to himself than to Charlie. "I promise." And for the first time in years, Oliver felt like he could breathe freely again. There were no more promises left unkept, no more unfinished chapters. He had come home, not just to the apartment, not just to the balcony, but to himself. And in the presence of his loyal friend, he felt like the world was once again a place of hope and possibility. A new beginning. Life slowly began to settle into a gentle rhythm. The pain of the past didn't vanish completely, but it softened with time. Each morning, Oliver woke to the soft rustle of wings and the familiar greeting. "Good morning, Oliver," chirped by Charlie in a voice that never lost its joy. The sound had once echoed through an empty apartment, but now it filled a home, warm and alive. Oliver's mother recovered enough to return to work part-time, and with her return came a new sense of stability. Their small apartment, once filled with tension and silence, now echoed with laughter, conversations, and, of course, Charlie's chatter. Charlie had grown older. His once bright green feathers had dulled slightly, and he didn't fly as often as he used to. But his eyes remained sharp, and his heart just as loyal. He no longer needed the cage. Oliver left it open, and the parrot roamed freely, usually perching on the edge of the window or curling up on the back of the sofa beside Oliver during quiet evenings. One afternoon, while cleaning up old boxes from the storage closet, Oliver found a photo album he hadn't seen in years. He sat on the floor and opened it slowly, page by page, pictures of him as a small child, his mother holding him, birthdays, school events, and then the first photo of him holding Charlie in his hands. Oliver smiled, his fingers brushing over the worn image. Charlie flew down and landed beside the album, peering curiously at the pictures. He squawked softly and Oliver chuckled. "That's you," he said, pointing at the photo. "That was the first day we met. You were so small. I think I was too." The parrot tilted his head, as if remembering. Oliver closed the album and looked out the window. A group of children was playing in the courtyard below. One of them, a boy about 7 or 8, was watching a butterfly flutter around him with wide, fascinated eyes. Something about the boy reminded Oliver of himself at that age, quiet, thoughtful, maybe even a little lonely. An idea sparked in his mind. That weekend, Oliver and his mother visited an animal shelter in the nearby district. They had birds, rabbits, and kittens, animals that had been abandoned or rescued, waiting for someone to love them again. Oliver walked through the rows of cages, pausing every so often to talk softly to the animals. He remembered the day he met Charlie, how a small bird had filled an empty space in his heart. He decided to volunteer. Every Saturday, Oliver helped feed and care for the animals, and sometimes he brought Charlie along, safely perched on his shoulder. The children loved him. They would gather around as Charlie mimicked their names, danced, or repeated funny phrases. "Waited for me," Oliver would tell them, sharing Charlie's story. "Even when I didn't come back, he believed I would." The children listened wide-eyed, some of them hugging their newly adopted pets tighter. Charlie, now older and slower, still had one last job to do, help others find what Oliver had found in him. Hope, comfort, and a reason to smile again. And so their story, once filled with longing and loss, became one of healing and giving. Oliver had kept his promise. He had returned, and now together they gave other lost souls a chance to be found. A new beginning, one filled with love, second chances, and the simple, enduring truth that sometimes even a small green parrot can change someone's world forever. The last flight. The seasons changed once more. The air grew crisp, leaves turned gold and red, and the world around Oliver seemed to slow with the gentle hush of autumn. Life had settled into a quiet, peaceful rhythm, full of purpose, love, and the warmth of shared memories. But even in peace, time moves forward. Charlie had grown old. His once bright feathers were now edged with grey, his voice not as loud, and his flights not as high. Yet his eyes, those bright, soulful eyes, still glowed, with the same loyalty and love they always had. Oliver noticed it one chilly morning. Charlie didn't fly over to greet him like usual. He stayed perched near the window, quiet, watching the pale sun rise over the rooftops. Oliver walked over gently and sat beside him. "Are you tired today, buddy?" he whispered, reaching out to gently stroke the bird's soft feathers. Charlie blinked slowly, pressing his head into Oliver's hand, letting out a quiet, contented whistle. It wasn't the energetic chirp of years past. It was softer, almost like a sigh. And somehow, deep down, Oliver understood. That day, he didn't go to work. He stayed home, wrapped in a blanket with Charlie resting on his shoulder. They sat, like that for hours, Oliver, talking quietly about their memories, about the balcony, the games, the long wait, and the miracle of coming back together. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with brilliant hues of orange and pink, Charlie made a small sound, one that Oliver hadn't heard in years. It was the very first whistle he had made when they met. The sound wrapped around Oliver's heart like a ribbon, bittersweet and beautiful. Charlie looked at him one last time, tilted his head gently as if to say, "Thank you," and closed his eyes. He didn't move again. Oliver sat very still. The world seemed to pause. Tears welled in his eyes, spilling silently down his cheeks. He held Charlie close to his heart, not wanting to let go. The little bird who had waited for him, who had never given up, had finally taken his last flight. But it hadn't been a flight of sadness. It was a release, a peaceful farewell from a friend who had given everything he had. In the days that followed, the apartment felt quieter. The mornings were still. The balcony felt a little emptier. But Oliver didn't feel alone, because Charlie had left something behind, more than feathers and echoes of his voice. He had left a legacy of love. Oliver buried Charlie in the garden, behind the shelter, beneath a small tree where birds often perched. He placed a simple stone there with just one line, "He waited and he taught me how to love." Years passed. Oliver grew older. He became a teacher, a caretaker, and a storyteller, and every time he saw a lonely, chilled or a lost animal, he saw a piece of himself and a piece of Charlie, because some stories never end. They simply take flight and live forever in the hearts they've touched.